Diddle-dum-dum, diddle-dum-dum. There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He ducked and covered, ducked and covered.
He did what we all must learn to do. You
and you
and you
and you, duck and cover.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover.
This is an official civil defense film produced in cooperation with the Federal Civil Defense Administration and in consultation with the Safety Commission of the National Education Association.
Produced by Archer Productions, Incorporated.
The Cold War was both a harsh and scary time for both the U.S. and USSR. Tensions were at an all-time high between the two countries, and the world was on the brink of nuclear destruction. But good did come out of the Cold War. There were many technological advances that came out of the war, the most significant ones being in atomic energy, space technologies, military advancements, medical advancements, and the internet. After the threat of Sputnik, which was the first satellite ever launched into space, the US was very worried. This enacted Eisenhower to form NASA. A few years later, NASA was assigned the mission to fly a man to the moon and back. This wasn't any easy task, but the goal was to beat the USSR to the moon. This became known as the space race. In 1961, Kennedy proposed a lunar mission landing. Although the Russians were more advanced in space technologies at this point, Vice President Johnson deemed that the lunar mission was far enough in the future to beat the USSR. On July 16, 1969, the US launched the first astronauts ever to land on the moon. With all the pressure the US received in the space race, they returned with the first ever lunar landing. Today, NASA is still prominent in the space industry and has accomplished many other firsts, such as the International Space Station, the creation of space shuttles, and Mars rovers. NASA doesn't only contribute to space. Many of their other engineering feats are being used today by the average civilian. Without the pressure to beat the USSR in space, NASA may have never been formed. Or if they were, the US would be far away from the accomplishments NASA has received to this day. One of the indirect things that came out of the Cold War was medical imaging technologies. These were MRI, CAT scans, nuclear isotope imaging, and PET scans. Most of these came from civilian nuclear technologies. Scientists took the advancements they had from nuclear weapons and put them to good use. Medical imaging is used today to detect early illness in people and animals. Currently, nuclear medicine can also treat diseases that would be lethal without nuclear technology. During the Vietnam and Korean War, both caused by the Cold War, trauma treatments were also advanced. Now soldiers and civilians who had a fatal accident had a 97% chance of survival after making it to treatment. Vietnam also contributed to a vascular registry. All these medical advancements are still being used today. Without the Cold War, this technology would not be available today. Tensions were at an all-time high between the US and USSR. This created the arms race. Military advancements were made in every aspect of weaponry, from planes to satellites. Technology swept up the military. Over 200 types of aircraft were made to further defend and outgun the USSR. Many of the planes' formats are still being used today. Other advancements included ballistic missiles, which were missiles that had the ability to be launched into space and come back down and hit the designated target within 25 minutes from launch. Many new satellites were also created. Their main objective was to gather reconnaissance. Today's satellites can do much greater things than aid the everyday American. The scariest part of the arms race were the nuclear weapons. They became so advanced that they could obliterate the entire world with a push of a button. In the 1980s, scientists had put 150 times the explosive power into the same size bomb used on Hiroshima. Some more accomplishments included all new ways of commanding missiles and vehicles with the internet. From advancements made in the Cold War, our soldiers are currently much safer on the battlefield and have the ability to defend our home front with ease.
You have a grandstand scene here to one of the most momentous events in the history of science. In less than a minute, you will see the most explosion ever witnessed by human eyes. The blast will come out of the horizon just about there. And this is the significance of the moment. This is the first full-scale test of a hydrogen device. If the reaction goes, we're in the thermonuclear era. For the sake of all of us, and for the sake of our country, I know that you join me in wishing this expedition well.
It is now 30 seconds to zero time. Put on goggles or turn away. Do not remove goggles or face burst until 10 seconds after the first light.
One of the darker sides of the Cold War was the creation of many military weapons, the most famous being advances in nuclear technology. At the time of the Cold War, the U.S. was very concerned with nuclear weapons. With all the advances of nuclear weapons, there also came nuclear energy. The scientists that created such a deadly weapon saw atomic energy as a way to redeem themselves. Nuclear power is the use of sustained nuclear fission to generate heat and electricity. Today it is being used around the world and is an extremely clean. Nuclear energy is also extremely cheap to create. In the future, nuclear energy has the potential to be the world's #1 source of energy. Atomic energy is also very safe. Fossil fuels are running low and nuclear energy is the way out. The Cold War was the cause of such heightened advances in nuclear technology. The US and USSR were desperate to have the biggest bombs and deadliest threats. The bright side to this was the rise of a clean energy source that is still being used today. Nuclear energy. But that wasn't the only innovation that rose out of the war. The most widely thing used today was also an indirect relation to the Cold War, that being the internet. The US government first thought of the internet as a useful weapon during the Cold War. The US wanted a database to hold government documents and transport them safely. Thus, the internet was born. There was no single inventor for the internet, but a collaboration of people through years of hard work. The internet is currently being used by almost 1/3 of the population. Many people can't live without the internet, and businesses heavily rely on the internet. Without the internet, we would be in a very different world. But thanks to genius and engineering innovation that came from the Cold War, the internet is here to stay. In conclusion, although the Cold War put stress on the entire world, good things did come out of it. The US prevailed, and with it came many technological achievements, such as atomic energy, military advancements, space technologies, medical advancements, and the internet. It has been said that 1 year of wartime is equal to 10 years of peacetime, this referring to how much faster technology evolves when under pressure. The Cold War proved just that, and today we are still benefiting from those achievements.